An MP is butchered. Yes, we know the mainstream media can talk it down. Know that community relations features heavily in their briefings. But an MP is butchered. And it's clear he's butchered by an Islamist, a jihadist. And for decades, we have failed to deal with this problem. And before his body's even cold, the fake liberal cover-up merchants, instead of directing what has taken place towards how it is that we're continuously letting people into our country who have no loyalty to our country and have no desire to develop any loyalty to our country. Instead of looking towards that, they twist it and turn it around and point it at me and you and people like us, and somehow twist it to say that this Somalian terrorist has got something to do with us holding corrupt politicians to account in towns like ours. Shameless.
Do not fear them. Do not fear any of them. On the 20th of November 2003, James Ignatius O'Rourke McMahon was elected councillor for the Failsworth East Ward of Oldham. Deeply ambitious, he ruthlessly rose to power, and by 2011 he was already leader of the council. In 2015, exploiting a Labour Party loophole, he became MP for Oldham West and Royton. If only the people of the town knew then what they now know. Do not fear them. Do not fear any of them.
Very good evening. It is Sunday the 17th of October 2021. My name is Raja Mia. I am still transmitting despite efforts to intimidate me, silence me. I am scheduled at a police station later this week, apparently for crimes that by the time this transmission is over, I'll show you there are far more serious, far more severe, but we know what this is about. We know what is taking place in our country. The mainstream media is controlled by a fake liberal elite who have been pushing on us a narrative for as long as I've been able to interpret and analyse what's on the TV, which is why I do not watch television anymore. I do not read the mainstream newspapers, and like many of us, millions of us across the country, tens of millions, hundreds of millions across the world, we have decided that we have the intellect to go where we want for the news, and they are desperate to try and censor and stop that. When we took out Sean Fielding in May earlier this year, within minutes of the decision being announced, Helen Peard from The Guardian and a whole host of these fake liberals were talking about the far right, fake news, and outrage that we'd taken out one of their aspiring politicians. Now, So it is no surprise that with the butchery of this MP, Sir David Amess, with the butchery of Sir David, irrespective of who killed him, why they killed him, how he was killed, under what circumstances, this Somalian British national was radicalised. Irrespective of all of that, they are jumping up and down and wanting to censor you and me. And all we've been doing is what Sir David fought for. Raising awareness on the issues that matter to us and saying to each and every one that we come across, go to the polling station and vote. This is a democracy. You can make a difference, and the way we make a difference is by voting. Oh, and by the way, did you know that Jim McMahon is like this with the Muslims? Did you know Arud Shah hangs off the arm of mobsters? Did you know the councils they ran are bent and have wasted tens, hundreds of millions of pounds of your money? That's not the talk of an extremist. Raising awareness, developing understanding, educating you to understand these issues. And so what if some of you have held prejudices? Who am I to judge your experiences? But what I am here to do is take you on a journey on how you can effectively bring about change, and through that process you leave behind prejudices. And I say this as a man who in 1997 began a journey. 4 years before 9/11, I began a journey on what we now know as counter-terrorism work, counter-extremism work. 4 years before 9/11. For nearly 25 years, this has been my work. So I was not at all surprised when news started to emerge that it was a jihadist who had already been referred to the government's Prevent programme. That as soon as that connection was made, all the focus was taken away from who did it, why he did it, what his motives may have been, what the Somalian connection is in the UK. And instead, ban those working class folk off social media. Because we know by now, our children are groomed and gang raped on the streets of our towns. The Manchester Evening News, the Guardian, the Times, none of them, the BBC, none of them are interested for fear of community relations. So we know we can't have our voices heard in the mainstream space, so we have come to a space where we are treated as equals, and it's harder and harder every day, but we still have a space where we can meet and talk. And they want to censor and ban us. And in the lead up to this, if anyone's responsible for stirring up hate speech and creating a climate through which a Conservative MP can be butchered in a church, well, that's on the Labour Party. It's not on me or you. With me, with how many? 39 people listening to me? No. This isn't on us. They want you banned now, don't they, Oldham? They want you banned because they reckon anonymous accounts are responsible for all of this. So they want anonymous accounts banned, even though the history, just think this through. How can whistleblowers come forward if you don't have anonymous accounts, if you can't hide your identity? Just think this through. What's happened in this town to people who've used the real identities and challenged this corrupt council? They've nearly lost their jobs. Some of them have lost their jobs. So Sir David Amess's killing was terrorism, police say. Terrorism. And the guy who's currently in custody, from the witness testimonies and what's been leaked and what's been come out, is a Somalian lad, 25 years old, Somalian heritage, and is British. Now, enough hasn't come out yet, and I've spent a big chunk of my time working with Somalians. In the 2000s, there was a group called Al-Shabaab, the youth. And the British government were genuinely worried of these guys. And I know many Somalian friends of mine in this country have fully integrated and are very appreciative of what we as a nation have done in the way we've took them in. So I'm not going to play this generalization game. And I think it's clear we know that from the beginning. But we do have a problem. We do have a problem. And that problem was touched on by the Tories, by the Conservatives at the last council meeting. But in typical Conservative style in this town, I say this with respect, they got a councillor to read out a motion that he'd never read before, and he mumbled his way through it, didn't know when to pause, didn't know when to put his inflections. It was like a child reading something in assembly that they'd not rehearsed properly. And again, I say that with respect. I don't mean that as an insult. It's clear, I think it was Dave, it's clear to him he'll need to do better. But what I looked at and I thought was just, they missed their point. They missed their point. I got the point they were trying to make. Now, they're either not brave enough to make the point, or they were just foolish with the, let's get a portrait of the Queen in every school in a prominent position, and let's sing the national anthem. What they were trying to get at wasn't about the portrait of the Queen. It wasn't about singing the national anthem. We've done all of this nonsense before in many ways, and it doesn't work. They're called citizenship tests. I remember having conversations with the Home Office at the time we introduced citizenship tests. So I think we nicked them from Canada or Australia. And we thought, because we are having a wave and wave of people come to our country at a faster rate than ever before, what we believed was that these citizenship tests would develop a sense of belonging and appreciation of the place they've come to settle. That's why we have these citizenship tests. So they develop a sense of appreciation and value where they now are from where they once were. So going back to what the Conservatives' motion was, I'm sorry, lads. A picture of a queen, of the monarch, is going to make a bugger all difference in developing a sense of belonging and appreciation of our values and integrating people into our country. Learning the national anthem, waving the flag. I get where you're coming from. I get what you're trying to do. But you need to be braver. Because we all can see what is going on. We all can see what is going on. We have multiple demographic groups in our country that couldn't give a about any of our history or heritage or our values. And I apologise to Marlene for saying, well, that's what I mean. It's how I feel about it. They couldn't care less. And government report after government report on cohesion and integration has demonstrated that there's a significant issue with the Muslim community. Not a community in one sense, it's just one group, but those who identify part of their identity as being a Muslim. There's a specific issue. And the schools have been pandering to it. The schools, our education system has been pandering to it. And again, I say this as a Muslim. At a funeral earlier today, I helped bury a Muslim woman, a friend of mine, my auntie, one of my aunties, in the way we all had aunties in those sort of working class communities. Fed me. Fed me throughout my childhood. Died suddenly on Saturday. We buried her today in Chadderton, in the cemetery there. So I say this as a Muslim. We have issues within our own communities that have, through that fake liberal what do they say about the path to hell, or the road to hell, paved with good intentions? I don't even think these are good intentions. I think they know exactly what they're doing. So, we're aware that there are a number of secondary schools in our town, recently or over the past, that have took music off the curriculum and dance off the curriculum because the Muslims object to it. They compare it to devil worshipping. And Manchester's a classic example of how within the state system in Manchester, they basically created a Muslim girls' school and a Muslim boys' school. They don't call them a Muslim girls' school or a Muslim boys' school, but they've essentially created what's a Muslim girls' school and a Muslim boys' school so that the genders can be educated separately because of the cultural and religious prejudices towards women and accommodating that. So there's a whole host of issues around belonging and nurturing the same sort of civic values in our country towards this demographic who increasingly identify themselves through a lens of the oppressed. And the Elbit factory protest is a clear example of that. Every time they look at their Muslim identity, they see it as though something bad has been done to them. And we're doing nothing about it or not enough about it. And there's a fundamental challenge in towns like ours, deeply segregated. Not me. The government research identified Oldham as one of the most segregated towns in the country. History of race riots, you all see it. How communities have been manipulated to have fear and resentment towards each other. No. We won't deal with it. You've all seen the young woman in Libya, now in the refugee camp. Bangladeshi heritage. Born here though. We stripped her citizenship, and you and I might disagree on it because I think it's our responsibility. She was born here, she was raised here. She was 14 or 15 when she smuggled herself out to go and be a jihadi bride for ISIS, the Islamic State. My issue is, how is it that children that are our own end up in this space where one turns up and stabs an MP to death? And it's that fake left bollocks that does it. So I agree with the Tories. We need to be more robust. We need to be more forceful in ensuring that our values are instilled on not just all our children, but we need to be even more stronger when it comes to those who've come here from places of violence and animosity towards our liberal Western democracy. What do you think Al-Shabaab, Al-Qaeda, Al-whatever are doing? They are teaching people to hate us and our way of life. And we sat here too embarrassed to raise our own flags in our own schools. We've got some idiot Councillor Mushtaq, Alexander Ward, up for re-election this time, standing up, ranting on with something that's got nothing to do with the issue, but to block a motion that included calling for the raising of the Union flag and teaching our history and our heritage, our values and our belief system. And every Labour councillor voted, remember, every Labour councillor voted against that. Now, in light of what's took place, the Conservatives in Oldham should rewrite that motion and take it back. Get rid of the bollocks to do with the picture of a queen in a prominent place. Have the courage to articulate it in a way that it resonates with everybody in this town, because everybody in this town knows what is taking place. I am at the police station on Thursday because I made reference to this, so I don't care. I'll carry on making reference to this. The Islamists' aspiration in the United Kingdom is not to take over our country, because they can't do that. The Islamist aspiration in this country is to make a nation within a nation, with their own parallel laws, legal systems. And Lynn, you said, how do you do this? Well, Lynn, I'll tell you how you do it one way. For start off with, ban those who believe you can get married 4 times. Ban faith schools, state-sponsored Muslim faith schools. Get rid of them. When you separate a group of people who are already separated, and the one place you actually have to instill our beliefs, our values, is in a state-sponsored, multicultural, multi-religious educational setting. That's the only space some of these people will have. And we allow the Islamists to opt out of that. Because, oh, it's a democracy, they can do what they want, it says freedom of expression. Bollocks! Numpty white politicians pandering to a bloc Asian vote controlled via the mosques and the cartels. And as a consequence, they're willing to sell out our communities, sell out our town and sell out our country. Who cares about the consequences? They control the council and they control the MP seats. And that's why I keep going back to the same place, Lynn. We have to vote them out. We have to vote them out. There's no other way of change. And as you can see in Oldham, the segregation isn't a consequence of the white community's racism towards a minority community. No, we've passed that. Generations and generations have been here. We're past that. Segregation is self-segregation. It's not just about physical segregation. When you choose to withdraw your child from a state school and put them in a Muslim-only space, that is self-segregation. And the killing of Sir David Amess, what really should be happening is a conversation should be taking place about how we address this. We're British born, or those who've come here at a young age are going on a journey and becoming radicalised and become extremists and terrorists. But we're not doing that because they don't want that conversation. The conversation they want is, oh, look at these guys. They're doing shouty things on Facebook. We need to go after them on Facebook. We need to go after them on Twitter. And if there is an issue, if there was an issue, look what she was doing 2 weeks ago. I brought it to your attention. Very little news was said of it. Was it Ian Duncan Smith? Attacked on the streets of Manchester. attacked on the streets of Manchester. These, if anyone's responsible, it isn't me and you on social media. Our politicians have been behaving disgracefully. This woman is an Oldham politician. She is absolute disgrace. She is a disgrace. And yet you vote her in. We vote her in. The people of Failsworth vote her in. Because she's got a gob on her and can abuse people, and we vote her in. And of course she didn't apologise. Women like her, men like her, politicians like her, they don't apologise. As part of the process of radicalisation, that's a process through which you become a terrorist. It's known as radicalisation. One step of that, and it's a latter step, on the verge of carrying out an atrocity, is you've got to dehumanise those you are going to attack. And traditionally, how you dehumanise those is the person who's going to do it, they're withdrawn from wider society. So any positive interaction with anyone who has the attributes, the demographics of who you're going to attack, you're withdrawn from that so you don't see the humanity of them. They've got to be vilified. Well, here, in our country, you don't need Al-Shabaab to do the vilifying. This woman will do it for you, and all of her mates. This is what she said. I'm sick of shouting from the sidelines. And I bet yous lot are too. We cannot get any worse than a bunch of scum. Homophobic, racist, misogynistic, absolute pile of banana republic Etonian piece of scum. And I held back a little. That I have ever seen in my life. Dehumanization there, that's what that is. Here's what some of the others have been saying. David Lammy, calling them Nazis is not strong enough. Neil Coyle, go, well you can see it yourself, F yourself. You're a waste of space, air and skin. You make me sick. Lynch the bitch. I will knife you in the front, not the back. This is hate speech right there. Why have the police not arrested these people? This is hate speech right there. Yes, Charles. And they all cheered her on. She's a vile woman, Sheila. She is an absolute vile woman. This is the Labour Party for you. So what's this I brought up, you're asking? Licensing Act 2002. Calder's off licence 162 Chadderton Way, Chadderton, Oldham. Planning permission application for a shop to sell alcohol. In our country, we are free to not just sell alcohol, we're free to drink alcohol. And if you don't want to drink it, you're also free not to drink it. There's a shop in Chadderton Way, remember Chadderton Way, middle of Calder's, heart of the OBA cartel. Abdul Jabbar's land, Ruji Sultan's land. Ruji Sultan, the woman councillor for Calder's, by the way, I've mentioned it before and I'll remind you all of you in case you've forgotten. Ex-YMO, Young Muslim Organisation. Identified by the government to be one of those organisations we need to keep our eye on. Not my cup of tea. They wouldn't like Muslims like me. And I don't know who this shop is. I've seen some of the commentary going on about this. They're trying to block this shop from selling alcohol because it's un-Islamic. Where do they think they are? Just where do they think they are? If a shop wants to sell alcohol in this country, it should be allowed to sell alcohol providing the licenses can be got in the right and proper way. These people are creating a nation within our nation. And in such segregated spaces, what do you think will happen? Come on, people, what do you think will happen? That's exactly what they are, aren't they, Gary? Give me a couple of minutes, talk amongst yourselves. Please buy me a coffee. Please do buy me a coffee. Like the page if you've not liked the page yet. It's the worry, isn't it? That's the worry. That's the worry. You're not going to get a word from McMahon.
Do not fear them. Do not fear any of them.